Welcome to the Leadership Insights podcast, the podcast that takes you on a journey into the world of leadership, offering a deep dive into the minds of accomplished leaders from various fields around the world. I'm your host, Amanda Jane, originally from the north of Ireland and now living in beautiful Cheshire, England. Together we'll explore the strategies, experiences and wisdom that have shaped these incredible leaders into the visionaries they are today through solo episodes and interviews. I'm a leadership and communications coach myself, and I'm passionate about promoting a coaching culture in the workplace, as well as empowering leaders to flourish personally and thrive professionally. Whether you're a seasoned executive, an aspiring leader in business, or someone simply fascinated by the art of leadership, each episode will provide valuable insights, practical tips, and inspiring stories. So get ready for a dose of motivation, innovation, and leadership brilliance on the Leadership Insights podcast, brought to you by amandajane.co.uk. Hello everyone and welcome to the Leadership Insights podcast. And today my guest is head ginger, Helen Calder from Gingerhead. Hi Helen.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for joining me. So tell me more about your company.
It's named after my eldest daughter, Lottie. She's partly the inspiration for setting up the business because I kind of ideally would like to inspire my two girls and other women that, you can run a successful business whilst also being very flexible in the way that you work with people and being flexible around. It was particularly mothers in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of really, really interesting and successful women who maybe are a bit sidelined once they start to have children. So that was kind of where Gingerhead started in terms of what we do. It's everything you can think of that would be creative in the sense of like branding, campaigns, that sort of thing. That's really what we do.
Fantastic. So very family focused. Is it the same for all your team?
Very much kind of everyone in the team has got, other things that they may, I suppose in the way in any job, everybody's got other things, other bits of life that they bring into the workplace, but we run in a really flexible way. And so we're very mindful that people may need to do school pickups or work different hours to each other or work quite remotely and that sort of thing. But we're a creative bunch, but I would say also we're a very competitive bunch. So so that can kind of be, I would say that's probably one of the things in a small business, you have to be quite competitive as well.
Do you have your motivational song?
I do. I really struggle to pick just one. But song-wise, so I've got really eclectic taste. One would be This Girl Is on Fire, Alicia Keys.
Good choice.
I can't listen to it now without getting really emotional because my younger daughter in particular just sings it at the top of her head all the time with her voice, sorry. And she loves it. And it really, both my girls are kind of really girl power when they sing that song. So I love that song. Shake It Off, Taylor Swift. Why I find it motivational is I think as a business owner, you have to be willing to let go of things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to make a mistake and let it go and just not make it again. Make another mistake, let it go.
Yeah.
So that song kind of helps me. The humor of that song helps me think that through sometimes. And then I'm going to say it, Run the World, Beyonce, because I think that's how I see the women in business, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
They're three.
They are fun. That's a fantastic choice. Oh yeah, Taylor Swift one. I absolutely agree, and I do hear that running around my own head. You can get lost in whatever problem you're dealing with, but shake it off. That's a good reminder. Queen Bee, Run the World. Absolutely.
Had to be a bit of Beyonce in there. There had to be.
It's fantastic. So, do you have a favorite motivational quote?
I really, really like, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And also be kind wherever possible, and it is always possible. I really strongly believe, when people say the phrase like everything happens for a reason, I don't believe that. And the reason I don't believe in that is because I think it's a kind of that we have no autonomy over our own lives, and you get to a certain age and that's just life. And I don't believe that. I think we're always learning. I think there's always an opportunity to change your life and make it better. Not necessarily maybe in every set of circumstances, but at some stage in your life, you can kind of reflect on what do I actually want? How do I want people to feel and so on, and you can make changes. So I'm very much someone who thinks that you're always changing, and that's really important as well. So probably those two quotes would be the two that motivate me the most. And also, I think any business in any sector, in any context whatsoever, it's about people, it's personal. And so kindness is a very undervalued skill. I think it's really important.
Couldn't agree more. It goes a long way, and we overcomplicate things, don't we? And when you strip it all back, if you just remember some very basic skills, just keep it simple. But being kind will take you all around the world, I think, and that's a good philosophy to live by. Well, thank you for that. Can you share your leadership journey and some key milestones that have shaped your career, and what stands out as memorable for you?
Probably key milestones that shaped my career. When I went into the corporate world very early on, so I was still in university at the time, and I worked for a company that was a really large company, but they were very good at, if you were quite a competitive person, which I always was, motivating young people to be really competitive. But they did performance management in a way that was the way that I think is the right way. And that's kind of that you might have right person, wrong job. And if you've got right person, wrong job, you must learn about people in order to manage them and what they're good at. And if someone is the right person, but they're not necessarily doing the job at the moment, that doesn't mean that they're the wrong person for your company. So that was I was only 19 when I started working there, and that was kind of drilled into me. And it's something that I've continued to it's always been something that I've kind of thought through. And like, if I've been in any other company since, do I have the right person, and on all the tweaks we can make to the job?
That's an interesting philosophy. I haven't come across that particular philosophy, and it sounds ideal.
Yeah, and I think in a large corporate company, obviously there's more freedom than there is in a small business sometimes, because in a small business you've got to be able to wear many different hats. But I think that too many companies, in my opinion, are too quick to sort of, that person's not performing. It's like, well, has that person got the right sort of attitude and skills that could be really useful if you're just willing to be a bit flexible in how you think about them? Yeah, and I definitely think I've then taken that into other places. So that would be something. I also had a really inspirational boss there who kind of
you were lucky to get one at such a young age.
I really was, and I still know him now. I think he put me on a communications project, which I didn't do anything to do with that at the time, and it was all about influencing how people behave, and how you can motivate people with the right sort of communications. And I was just fascinated by that. So that then made me go back to study again, and which he supported, and completely changed my entire career. So that was probably a milestone moment where I was kind of like, oh, actually, I'm really interested in like how communications can influence people positively and negatively, and how change works in a business and so on. So that was the first standout moment. And then probably immediately after that, going and working in an emergency services organization, which really teaches you about how communications needs to be thought through in kind of very serious situations. Testing out some things there in a completely different environment, like a really hierarchical structure, but where the outcomes of what you were doing really mattered, was probably a big milestone moment for me. And it was also kind of a stage in my career where I was really kind of leading on a lot of big communications projects, and there was a lot riding on it. It had to go well. So I remember I kind of learned there that I probably spend, with any kind of big challenge, I probably spend a little bit of time really freaked out with massive imposter syndrome, and I have to kind of just deal with the next step in front of me and the next step in front of me. And I learned that when I was about 24, and I still do that today. So if there's something that I feel is too big, I have to break it down into what's the next step. Just do that. And also probably not a milestone moment, but people are really kind and they can help, and you must ask for it. I think that I learned that very early on, and I have a large network of people that I really trust, and I ask for advice, and I don't mind looking stupid and kind of asking the silly questions, saying I don't know how to do this.
I'm laughing because people can't read minds. It's not really interesting, and until you still say, oh, can I ask your advice? Can I have some help? Just ask.
Yeah. I mean, so many people are kind of really scared to look soft. And I really don't like, I do not care how embarrassing it is to ask a question.
No, there's no such thing as a stupid question in my book, really. If you've got to ask, you've got to ask.
But I think maybe that takes a bit of learning along the way to get
Yeah.
there. Where you're like, okay, this is fine. It's safe. I can ask the question. I don't know the answer to that. Please help. So that's probably been something that I think I still have to this day. And I try and help my team to know that they can do the same.
So you mentioned imposter syndrome there. Did you
Yeah.
manage to defeat that demon, or does it still rear its ugly head? I'm always curious about that, because I struggled with it and I defeated it.
Well, I'm very interested to know how you defeated it. I would say in my case, mostly yes. I definitely think for me, it tends to be certain tasks that it will come back more so than others. So I'd say probably what I've tried to do is design out of my job the things that cause that for me where possible. And I feel very lucky that I can do that to an extent. But also my inner self-talk was not great. And so trying to understand where that comes from, I've done an awful lot of work on that. It's an ongoing process. I would say progress, not perfection, is where I am at the moment. But I'm interested to know that you're kind of at the other side of that.
Well, that's what brought me to coaching, really. I had some struggles at work. I was very lucky to be offered coaching, and I had a great coach. And the transformation in me, I thought, wow, this is amazing. Why doesn't everyone know this? So I did some research in emotional intelligence, imposter syndrome, negative self-talk, perfectionism. I describe myself as a recovering perfectionist. So yeah, and it's not a switch that you can switch off, but I then wanted to study and I wanted to get qualified, and I did. I spent a few years studying, and I passed, and I was thrilled. But I was going through all the processes, and that's, for me, the heart of it is coaching, going through what does it mean, breaking it down on negative self-talk. If that's a whole other podcast, but breaking that down, you are the one that is doing the most damage to you. And there's steps to control it and talk about it. But the imposter syndrome is a really, really big ugly monster, and I learned a lot through journaling, gathering evidence about my successes, that because you can't lie, evidence can't lie. If you've listed all your successes, and the minute you start going, oh, I'm useless at this, I can't do this, and your brain goes, haha, but your book says otherwise. So as a coping strategy from that, I just do it. And if I hear that little voice coming up, I just, nope, don't talk to me. And then I just keep doing it. And gradually, over a few years, that voice has got dimmer and dimmer. So while I'm not completely cured, it's definitely been a transformative journey. But for me, it was definitely coaching. But it's self-awareness, a constant journey.
I think that side of things, and I've definitely got really comfortable, particularly since I turned 40, weirdly, of like
it's pivotal.
and sort of feeling that I need to really understand kind of who I want to be and who I am, and where how far you are away from each of those things and what matters. And I care less about externally about what other people think. And I think so. I have a gratitude journal, which I started when I was 40, and that has actually really helped me, because I think I'm one of those people that I can always be looking at what's the next thing, and that can be good to a point, but it can stop you actually. And I think especially when you manage teams, that can be demotivating as well, because you're so focused on, and you do this a lot in a small business, kind of like, we need to get there. You're so focused on that, and you forget to take a moment to be really grateful for where you are and how far you've come. And so it is a constant reminder for me that to say, what am I really grateful for, what how far we've come, what have we achieved. And that probably does help with imposter syndrome, because then when I have that negative self-talk, you're absolutely right. I love research, I love stats, I'm a very geeky numbers kind of person, because I'm really like, oh, that's a result, I can look at that, it's tangible, I can't lie to myself about that. I completely agree with that has been
yeah, you can rewire your brain, neuroplasticity. That's something else that came up on my coaching as well. Do you have any role models?
I do. I have a few people. I was thinking about this the other day. I think lots of people inspire me for different reasons at different times in life. What I think, it's more about the kind of values that they have that inspire. So it doesn't really matter who the person is to me. It's kind of like how they behave. So I'm really inspired by people who show compassion and trust the people they work with, and definitely people who I see as they don't see their role as a leader as one where you stand out as a star, but one where you inspire other people to do so. That's probably been lifelong for me, like ever since I started being a leader, if you like. I would see it as my role is to help others to fulfill their potential, I guess, or to make them look good, to make them stand out, and to make the team perform. And that can mean that different people stand out at different times, but that's okay as well. So I kind of have a very collaborative way of working with people. But I would say like the types of people that have over the years that have stood out to me, well, famous people, there's Gary Vaynerchuk. He runs like a really well, he used to run a wine company, and he runs a really large kind of communications company now. He's always on LinkedIn, he's always doing podcasts and stuff, but he does talk about being kind. One of his kind of like key philosophies, and that the most important thing with a leader is like looking after people. I think he pretty much on a daily basis inspires me. And then there are a couple of people throughout my career. So Paul Dawson, who I worked with in one place, and Ruth Shane and John Quinton Barber and Marie Gray. They were people I was thinking about. And in all cases, they are people who not only understand what their role is as a leader, but they're also people who listen very well to their teams, who take a kind of, I guess, that similar kind of right person, let's work out what the job needs to be, almost. Or that's how I see that they lead as well, and are really supportive of their teams. And that's the kind of leader that's always really inspired me. And people who are really good at kind of like being patient and listening, because you probably can tell already I talk a lot. That's a nervousness.
So do I.
Oh God,
That's why I do podcasts.
Yeah, I just kind of I would like to talk a bit less. But I think, that kind of being inspired by other people, watching how they behave around their teams, watching how they inspire others. So maybe like people who inspire me are people who are able to inspire others. That's probably a big thing.
No, I'm fascinated, because first thing that struck me was I thought how lucky you are to have had those people who went before you to inspire you, and you're speaking of them so positively and with such affection and admiration. And look what they formed in you.
Oh goodness, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've missed out so many people. I would be here. Like there's so many people, and I'd also feel very lucky that some of my first kind of clients were people who I used to work with in different companies, or was a former boss or something, or a colleague or a friend, or someone I was in a Saturday job with back when I was 16. And that was something I found really, really fascinating in the early stages of a business, is that you already know a lot of the people you're going to work with. You just don't realize you do. And I do feel very lucky to still know a lot of the people that I knew when I was a teenager, because it kind of, watching someone over a career of 20 something years, putting an age on myself now. But I think, I think you can see how like their leadership style changes as well as they like change in different roles. And that I find really fascinating. And because I think this job now, I love my job. I'm really lucky. I absolutely love my job. I haven't always. But one of the things I found really difficult at first, which I was really surprised by, was when I was in a corporate structure. I was talking about like how you do performance management well. Anybody who's been a leader at some stage has had to let somebody go, and it's one of the hardest things that you have to do, especially if you're not a psychopath. You care about people at your work. But within a corporate structure, if you've been fair and you've followed the rules, and you've given every opportunity for that person, whilst it feels awful, they're not your rules. It's in your own business. I really struggle with that, like the kind of, hiring the right people and motivating them, but also like knowing when the right time is to not work with someone anymore, because then they're just my rules. So that I found really, really hard in the early stages, and kind of like, oh, what do I do when I haven't got the right person? How do I handle that? Because that's just me saying, I've decided this.
So is it rules or is it boundaries?
Probably a bit of both, I guess. Boundaries is a really interesting question, actually, because I've been doing a lot of reading about this recently. And I think if you set a boundary with someone, it's like a bit of a red flag for me, client or person who you work with in any way. I take it as a bit of a red flag when it's not respected, and patterns of behavior like that can be really quite noticeable quite quickly. Boundaries is okay, yeah, I would say that's really important. And maybe where the rules come from setting boundaries.
It's just something that I, over recent years, have had to give some thought to and think about my own boundaries and what it means. But once you understand what your boundaries are, and they can change, and that's great. We can be adaptable and you can change. But I sincerely believe it is a real light bulb moment when you set your own boundaries. And also, if people react badly to those boundaries, I'm moving on from the hiring and firing stage, just in business generally, how people react to those, that's data that can help you if, if it does bring up red flags. And it's a good barometer for me personally, but it's definitely something I've been giving a lot of thought to over recent years. And what is it? What does it mean? What does it look like? And if you give some thought to your previous self, you can clearly see where you haven't honored your own boundaries. I don't mean you personally, but we all do. And I think what I think what you've described in the corporate world, they've definitely got established rules, and if you don't conform in the performance management, but when you're running your own business, your boundaries have to be more tight, more concise, because you don't have the luxury of time or money, or you don't disappear into that corporate machine. And your boundaries probably have to be a lot more firm and a lot more tight, because you don't have the luxury to carry someone that's you've given a really good opportunity to. And if you've got to that stage, that they're not working out, maybe you have tried them in another role or whatever. But it's just another interesting facet, I think, of business entrepreneurship, and something else that you don't meet in the corporate world.
I think that that's the same case for clients as well. Like it's not like I'm kind of like I've hired and fired lots of people or anything like that. All clients, I'm very grateful to everyone that's worked with us along the way, because it's been part of the learning. So whether the experience has been good or not, it has helped us understand something about where we need to get to. And in some of the early stages of running a business, you don't know what you're doing. You know how to do, and I think that's the thing that's another thing that you don't get taught. You know how to do your specific job, but no idea how to run a business. And so you do so many things that you're not good at all the time. And I think some of those clients that, like, if you break your teeth on, you look back and you think, oh no, oh, I wish we hadn't done that like that.
But how else do you learn?
Well, yeah, but I think some of those are also the ones that do help you set boundaries. It's only by sometimes it's by making the mistake that you're like, oh, actually, that's how we'd like to do that in future. We have a crank policy in Gingerhead, which I won't tell you too much about, but we do have like warning signals, and they are boundary related. So if we're kind of, oh, hang on, I'm not sure about this, we need to be careful. We live by our crank policy.
and you absolutely need to, because it's just an internal handbrake, isn't it? Even if it's just that pause. And that's one of my favorite words in coaching. You just need to stop, pause, think, and spend a few minutes analyzing what's happening. What do you need to do? It's definitely something very useful, because you're running at 120 miles an hour. You're trying to get everything done, running your own business. As you say, you're skilled at one particular thing, that's why you do what you do, but all of a sudden you've got to be an accountant and a web designer and an expert communications, and you learn fast. It's definitely a steep learning curve, but that's how you learn, by jumping in and doing it, ditching the imposter syndrome. Giving it a go. Yeah. And I think that that's the beauty of life, really, isn't it? And when you do it, when you achieve it, and you sit back and think, oh, I did that, it's that satisfaction. When you're terrified beforehand and you've done it, those are the things that you think, wow, I actually did that. And that's what makes you feel achieved and fulfilled. And to think of a future where you're just going to do the same thing over and over again, that type of thing doesn't appeal to me. But new challenges, new scary things, and who knows what's coming up. So you're obviously addicted to some of the adrenaline.
I definitely like new scary things. I would agree with that. Yeah. That is, I think, because I tend to be one of the ones that's on the new stuff, because I really, that's what switches me on, and kind of working out a new puzzle. I really like that.
I don't like being left behind either. If there's new tech or there's something come along, I have to know what it is. And it's new discoveries, and who knows what's coming up. But I can get completely absorbed in it, and not necessarily from a business point of view, but I just love discovering new things, and also keeps your brain active, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. It's kind of, I try and have like even when I'm cooking or something, I really enjoy to cook. And I have a new thing I have to learn to make about once a month, because I just I like to be taken out my comfort zone. Actually, I started working with a personal trainer about a year and a half ago, and I'd never weight trained. And I was kind of like, nope, I'm not strong. And actually, I think the kind of bits of progress in something you didn't know how to do, and watching that over time, I really, really enjoy that. And I think you do get to see that with running a business. You can kind of, if you look at things in terms of year on year progress rather than week on week, hugely different in that time. So yeah, maybe we are all a little bit addicted to the new and the exciting.
Something to think about, isn't it? But you don't
Yeah.
you don't stop to think,
Yeah,
what is it? But that's a new discovery. You mentioned you've got two beautiful daughters.
I did. Yes.
So how do you manage work life? I'm saying work life harmony because some people don't like the work life balance. I'm not going for that either, because I don't think I have a balance. Harmony, when you try to make it all work. How does it work for you?
One of
Or
my
does it?
Often, no. One of my themes for the year was actually balance for this year, because I'm trying to figure it out. And I think it's a work in progress. I think you're always trying, and there's when I think it causes the biggest kind of problems is or challenges actually really is when little ones get sick,
Yeah.
which can happen quite a lot. So there's certain times of the year where you just you lose time, needing to look after a sick child as well as do all the usual things as well as do your job. And I think that can not be understated how much time that takes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't understand it before I was a mother myself. So I remember actually a former colleague, Laura Roach, who I hugely rate, amazing woman. She came to work for me. I'd worked with her before, and she returned from maternity leave to a new job with me somewhere. And I just didn't understand the level of challenge that actually was at the time. And it was, a very demanding job. And she did so well. But sometimes that challenge of new motherhood in a new place as well, it was, it was really a lot. And I've appreciated that so much more since I've become a mother.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answers are. I do know that I have to have a moment of absolute calm, and it needs to just be like 5 minutes or something every day, where I don't have to be anything to anyone. So it might be that I go and sit and cuddle my cats, or I might listen to a podcast in the morning, or I might go for a walk in the woods. But I need a moment every day where I'm not needed by anyone for anything.
I'm laughing because I totally relate, and it's not even funny, but I've just got visions of my own self being pulled arms and legs, mom, husband, job, but it's exactly that, just 5 minutes where no one isn't demanding attention.
Yeah, because you have to, with my team and I talk about this a lot of time, that the mother load. And I'm very lucky. I've got a really supportive husband and a flexible job. And I still really struggle sometimes with harmony. And I try, because I'm very mindful of the fact that my girls are not going to be this age for long. They're so fun at the moment. And I want them to know that in the moments with them, I try and really be there in the moment with them. So I try, because it was actually Harriet, so my youngest, she was doing impressions of me. This is a year or so ago. And she was like this on her computer, sort of focused. And then she was having these phone calls. And then she went, shh, shh. And I said, oh, what are you doing? And she said, well, I'm being mummy and I'm very busy. I thought, oh God. And it upset me a bit, because I was like, I don't like that's the impression of work that she gets, or the impression of life. So I kind of constantly practice that when I'm spending time with them, it's protected time as much as possible. And then that work has a start and a stop. But the tiny moments of peace every day definitely helps. And it only has to be 5 minutes, but you just need that. Because as a mother, you kind of you can't even have a bathroom trip by yourself. Privacy is not a thing anymore. Sorry to say.
I for how long now? Maybe 4 years. I do a little 5-minute meditation most days.
Okay.
Before I start anything, and it's just 5 minutes. Go through this meditation, positive affirmations in it, breathing exercises, energy cleanse, and that just brings me sanity. If I go through the day and it's really manic, somehow my brain reminds me that have been through that, and it reminds me of the positive affirmations. But if it's any comfort to you, my daughters are 19 and 16 and would have done the same as you've just described when they were little. And they are both really, really hard workers, and my youngest is 16. And I ask them, and I say, oh, why do you work so hard? And then they say, oh, it didn't occur to me to do anything else. Or I try to work out what my influence was. But maybe because I worked so hard, it's been a positive thing. But I too would have struggled, and they would have, copied mummy being on the computer, because there were times I did have to work at home. But it's not necessarily a bad thing that they see their mum working hard and creating something wonderful and going out there and doing it. So, you've got your protected time. But now that my girls are older, I can ask those questions, and I say, oh, do you remember the thing that they do? The thing that they didn't like was the after school clubs and things that I had to set in the summer schemes. And they mentioned one of those a couple of weeks ago. And I was trying not to get upset, but I could feel myself getting upset because I didn't like putting them into the summer schemes that I had to do. But I had no choice. Like most mothers, we had no choice, and we had to do what we had to do. But if that was the worst that came out of what we have to do, then that's fine. And over the course of these podcasts, when I find that woman that says, I have it all, my work-life balance is great, I have no problems,
then let me speak to her.
I will ring up every single guest and I will tell them, because I haven't found her. And every single one of us beats ourselves up for the very same thing. And, coming out the other side now, my girls are older, I'm less hard on myself, but I did beat myself up. We all do. But that was a waste of time and probably a waste of my emotional energy. But when I find that woman, I will let you know, because she does not exist.
No, I for a long time felt really guilty about when Lottie was little, and that was when I was first setting up the business, and I was worried about how that would affect her. And then when Harriet was born, I returned to work after 4 days maternity.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know I saw you right at the end of the pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not well. And I think, I didn't return full time, but I remember going to a meeting, and I had to time the feeding I had to time the meeting without the client knowing that it was between a feed. My lovely husband came with me on the train. I fed her on the way down. I was still sort of, had a cesarean section both times, so I was still scarred.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of like go in, be fine.
Yeah.
And I was watching the clock for the meeting thinking, if this goes longer than an hour and a half, I'm in real trouble, because that's a feed. And just be fine in that moment. And I think that's where I was actually really, really lucky looking back on it now, because it was hard, don't get me wrong. But actually, I went to that meeting, and then I completely collapsed, had a bit of a cry. And that was a day, and I did the thing I needed to do. And I think that is where I do feel really, really lucky now, because I think actually in my job, some of those moments were just a moment where I had to be on a client call and be okay. And then I could kind of take a minute. Whereas I think about people who've had to return, to like really serious long hour shift jobs where you're on your feet, or corporate roles where you just needed so many hours a week. And that's where I then feel, actually, I had it okay, in fact. And, I am able now to pick the kids up from school and take them to their dance classes. And I choose to do that, but I'm also able to do that. So I do feel very, very lucky for that. And I think that's been something that, whilst I have my guilt, mum guilt is a huge thing though, because I'll have my guilt about the things that I miss. Someone else will have their guilt about something completely different. Someone who's a stay-at-home mum will have guilt about that. Someone who's working 70, 80 hours a week will have guilt about that. It seems to be built into us, doesn't it?
It's in the DNA, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're a bit hard on ourselves, I think, working mums. But all I can say with absolute clarity is everyone is doing their very best. And it's all relative to their circumstances. Everyone is doing the very best for their families, the best that they can in that moment, and the guilt just doesn't help, but you just got to get on with it and do the best you can. And you're lucky, you know, you had really good circumstances. I too am lucky. I've got flexibility in my life, which I'm eternally grateful for. And if you don't, it brings its own problems. I remember many years ago, you'll be horrified by this. I worked somewhere I won't mention, and I hadn't had children at the time, but one of my colleagues did, and her baby was sick. So she phoned and said, I can't come in today, my baby's sick. And the manager said, you better get your priorities right.
Yeah, I'm not very surprised by that.
And that stayed with me, this, as you can tell, and it just stayed with me. And I know exactly where my priorities are. And I, you know, when my children needed me, I was there always. And I never would have put job over sick child. But yeah, we struggle on. We do our best.
I think as long as they know they're loved, I think that as long as you can say, okay, they know they're loved, then everything else, you just, everybody's having a go. But I think I've definitely worked places as well, or certainly, you know, I've been in interview situations where I've had like a ring on my finger when I haven't been engaged at the time, and or I've been asked what my plans are.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's a thing that just happens to women. I genuinely don't know, but
we'll never know, will we?
It doesn't feel okay. It doesn't feel.
No.
I think that's probably another reason that Gingerhead exists. I'm like, you know, life happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't make anyone less good at their job.
No. And you couldn't find what you needed, so you created it for yourself.
Yeah, maybe that's, or certainly I'm trying to.
Well, I've gone into interviews after my girls were born, and when the time was right, I said, I'm a mother first. And I disclosed it immediately, because I thought, I don't want to work here if you're not going to accommodate me. And it worked. I was lucky. But I do remember when you're first a mum and you don't know what to say, you're hiding the fact that you're a mum. And but to put on the spot and ask those questions, well, hopefully can't get away with it anymore like that. But interesting line of questions.
I definitely think companies are much more open to that now. I think maybe like COVID kind of helped that as well. Like it humanized people much more, because you had to kind of get a glimpse into each other's lives a little bit. So I do think, I don't think it's as bad as it once was, but I still think it's a challenge.
And over COVID, I think, taught me, or hopefully society as a whole, to be more tolerant, because I can remember being on the phone to a bank or somewhere and hearing children in the background and the person apologizing, and I was saying, it's fine, don't worry, I'm here too. But the transaction still happened, the work still got done, even though the children were in the background. And you know, the world did not come to a standstill. So maybe it did teach us some tolerance. But you know, that these children have got to be raised, and they've got to be raised well. And what's the point in trying to pretend that they don't exist? But the flexibility that we have now, and home working, and hopefully life will be made better for a lot of people that are struggling. And you know, you don't have to travel anymore, hopefully. And that, I mean, that's a godsend as well, financially, as well as giving us back a little bit more time. One final question: what legacy do you hope to leave as a leader, and how do you measure the impact of your leadership?
I really struggle with this as a question. What legacy? I think if I can look back on time in Gingerhead, like, I hope that this is a job that I do till I'm kind of in my rocking chair one day. But if I can look back on it and we made a difference for some things we really believed in, and we helped some people, and then I was able to have a number of people really enjoy, because your job is a big part of your life, actually. It's like most of the hours of your week. So if I could make some people's lives better, which I know sounds like a big claim, but I think that I would be very happy with that. I'm not money oriented at all, really, actually, but I think if we made a difference, and there are some projects, we're very choosy about the things we work on. So if there are some projects that we really believed in that did some good, that matters very much to me. So that's probably, in terms of legacy, that's the kind of thing I'm interested in. Like, how can you like those things that do no harm, how can you do a bit of good in the world? How can you make a bit of the world around you better? Legacy wise, like for future of leadership, I don't know whether I'm an inspiring person or not. Hopefully so at some stage.
I think you are. Hopefully you've inspired some working mothers today, because you just need someone to identify with, don't you? I would definitely say that you're an inspiring working mother.
Well, bless you. Well, I think if I could inspire some people to have a go and to not be afraid to take a look at their life and go, do you know what, I think I can do a bit better than this. And to know that it doesn't matter, as in, well, it does matter. It matters more that you're a mother. And it therefore matters more that you inspire your children to know that they can change their life at any stage that they want to. So legacy wise, if I could inspire other people to change something that they want to change, then that would be something, I think.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. If someone looks to you and thinks, yeah, she's doing that, I can do that. It's as simple as that transaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
You inspire someone by your actions, and it goes back to, it's a very simple thing. If she can do it, I can do it. And if being a working mom, raising your children, and also your children are going to look to you and think, well, my mom did it. So where can we find out more about Gingerhead and what you do?
You can look at us on Instagram or our website, wearegingerhead.com. And hopefully there'll be a few campaigns that you might see around Liverpool in the next 12 months or so. You'll see a bit about what we do there. But yeah, our website probably be a good place to start.
That sounds exciting. Is there anything there at the moment we can see, or do we have to wait and see what's coming up?
No, we're going through a period of change at the moment, and it's really exciting. And we've had a brand that we've worked on, which is very, very us, and it's been very timely. And we haven't yet got it out, but it is out later this year. So I'm really excited by that. And I think I'm really, really excited about the current projects of the year. There's a lot going on at the moment, but I feel like we're doing some things that we really know how to do well. And we're being trusted. And I love our clients. They're amazing. We've got some clients that just trust us with their projects. And again, I feel really grateful for that, because it is really hard to get people to trust you in the early stages. And I do understand why, because you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, it's quite an exciting time for us at the moment.
But it's a real joy to work with people that get you, isn't it? And that love what you do, and your whole face is just lit up. But thank you so much, Helen. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Really enlightening, really interesting, and thank you for sharing your struggles. It's just reassuring to think that someone else is going through the same thing that we're all going through. And thank you for your honesty.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Insights podcast today, and special thanks to my lovely guest, Helen Calder. Join me on the next episode for more inspirational leadership stories and insights. You can follow me on Instagram at Coach Amanda Jane, or visit my website amandajane.co.uk. Bye for now.